about the two limiting cases, but let us just stretch it a little bit to have the picture of the entire near wall velocity distribution, not just the overlapping case or the limiting case. So, to understand that, let us say that you have a flow where, say, maybe flow between two parallel plates, where you have a center line where which sort of represents the outer behavior, or you may have a boundary layer for flow over a surface, a flow over a flat plate, where you have a boundary layer thickness which gives a sort of like the length scale of the inner behavior. So, either maybe, so let us call half height of the channel as say delta, or the boundary layer as delta, depending on like what we are looking for as an internal flow or flow over an external surface. Now, when you go to that length, let us write this u plus. So, u plus 0, let us say u plus 0 is the u plus at that length where the outer behavior comes into the picture, and that will become 1 by k ln y plus is y by y tau. So, y is equal to delta here. So, delta by y tau plus a, and at any other y you have u plus is equal to 1 by k ln y by y tau plus a. So, if you subtract these two, you will get u plus minus u outer plus is equal to 1 by k ln y by delta. So, that means you can write this as u minus u0 by u tau by writing in the dimensional form is equal to 1 by k ln y by delta. So, it is a sort of outer picture. Sometimes it is also known as a velocity defect law. Why such a name? Such a name is there because there is a deviation of u from u0 or the outer layer because of some effect of turbulence, because of the effect of the fluctuating components. Now, this is a picture where much away from the wall, maybe outer condition you get such velocity defect, very close to the wall you have u plus equal to y plus and u plus as a function of y plus in general, in between you have a logarithmic description in general, and maybe outer description is this one. Now, what did experiments give? So, let us try to make a plot of u plus as a function of ln y plus. We will try to make a fit of these approximate forms with what we get from experiments. So, what are these approximate forms? First of all, very close to the wall you have u plus equal to y plus, that is our conjecture. U plus equal to y plus will be like this, not a straight line because we are plotting with log, okay. Then somewhat away from the wall you have u plus equal to 1 by k ln y plus plus a. So, somewhat away from the wall u plus versus ln y plus will look like a straight line. So, let us say that straight line is this one, okay. So, these are the two important derived quantities from this physical model or from this simplistic model. Now, what is the experimental picture that we usually get? The experimental picture is that very close to the wall it almost satisfies it, then maybe it undergoes a deviation, sort of a deviation from this way, then it almost satisfies the log law and then it starts deviating again. The blue line is a sort of a experimental picture, and you see that it is qualitatively, of course quantitatively there will be deviations, but qualitatively it is not so much deviating from what has been derived from a very simplistic theoretical conjecture. So, there is a limit over which the experimental and theoretical very close to the wall exactly match, that is this is u plus equal to y plus, this line, and this line is u plus is equal to 1 by k ln y plus plus a. So, this limit is roughly like y plus equal to 5, okay. So, roughly up to y plus equal to 5. So, what is y plus doing? See, y is a region very small close to the wall, but what is y tau? Y tau is nu by u tau. Nu is very small, u tau let us say it is like say nu is 10 to the power minus 6 meter square per second and u tau is like say 1 meter per second as an example. So this ratio is small, so when it is divided with y, it blows up y. So what it does, it gives a new length scale which zooms or blows up the phenomenon very close to the wall. Because this behavior is valid very close to the wall, you do not have sufficient resolution until or unless you zoom it up or blow it up with a stretching. So this scaling gives you a sort of a stretching. So it allows y to be magnified, that is as if you are now sitting with a magnifying glass and seeing very in a vivid details that what is happening very close to the wall. This new coordinate allows you to do that, and you see that it is a sort of like a Reynolds number, it is some u into y by nu. So this y plus is a sort of an equivalent Reynolds number. So the corresponding y plus very close to the wall till which the experimental and this behavior is valid is roughly equal to 5. Then you come to the other layers, you see that like you will come to locations where these laws are more or less not that effectively valid. So maybe this is like a sort of a location at which you will get that there is a very nice matching with the logarithmic law. So this is roughly like y plus equal to 30, and these are just obtained from experiments, there is nothing very fundamental about it. Then you have a region where like this log law of head is valid no more, this is roughly like y plus of the order of 10 to the power 3. So you see that there are different zones and different zones are given different names. So you have the name of say so called this region as the inner region. So inner region means it has a part with the u plus equal to y plus and it has a part with u plus equal to 1 by k ln y plus b. So there is in the inner region, what are the sorts of behaviors you have? You have a behavior where solely the molecular viscosity is determining what is happening, that is why u plus equal to y plus, and this is called as a viscous sublayer. In very old books it is written as a laminar sublayer, but laminar sublayer is not a very correct term because that gives a false indication that the entire behavior here is laminar. It is not so. There may be cases when there are some turbulent fluctuations in these layers, they may be intermittent, they sometimes appear and disappear, but it is not perfectly laminar, but whatever it is dominated by viscous effect, molecular viscosity, that is why viscous sublayer is a better name for this. So then you have this layer where you have a transition from this viscous sublayer behavior, and this is a sort of a patch where you have a transition from one behavior to another behavior, this is known as a buffer layer. And the layer over which the logarithmic law is valid is known as logarithmic layer. And from the logarithmic layer to the entire thing is usually known as the outer region, and you can see therefore there is a region which is an overlap between the inner and the outer region. So it is not that where the inner region finishes the outer region starts. I would say that the names are not very important because these names have been traditionally given in this way and that is what we are portraying here, but what are the important physical phenomena that are occurring over these different length scales are what are the matters of concern for our understanding. Now what we will do now, we will just have a short description of this in an alternative viewpoint or in an alternative picture. What is that alternative picture? Let us say that we do not know what is the form of velocity profile very close to the wall. So just from dimensional arguments we can write that for smooth walls you have u plus as a function of y plus in the inner region very close to the wall. Right? We do not know say the function relationship, and that is quite true because only in the viscous sublayer we know that u plus equal to y plus. The remaining region u plus is solely a function of y plus over at least a given I mean threshold length, but we do not know the exact function relationship. If you go somewhat away from the wall, you know that so u plus is what, u by u tau. Somewhat away from the wall if you go, you have u minus u naught by u tau. Let us say it is a function of what? It is no more a function of the viscous effect. See, the thing is in the y plus, the important thing is y plus is dominated by a viscous length scale, a length scale based on the kinematic viscosity. As you go in the outer region, you see here the velocity profile is governed by y and the system length scale, but not the nu. So this is another function of, say let us call this as eta, where eta is equal to y by delta. This is what is an understanding that we get from this Prandtl's mixing length analysis. These exact functions we may challenge, but the forms we may not challenge because forms are the same. Now at the overlap, these functions should behave the same way. That means wherever they are overlapping in terms of their physical behavior, you can see that one is taking over the other at a region, and at that overlapping condition you must have what? You must have that these functions giving the same behavior. Not only that, for smooth transition their derivatives also should give the same behavior. That means when they overlap, when these behaviors overlap, you have du dy from the inner is equal to du dy from the outer. Okay. When we say u, these are all u bar, u average, that we have to keep in mind. So what is du dy inner? So du dy we can write u tau into df dy plus into dy plus dy, right. U is what? U tau into f. So what is du dy? U tau into df dy, u tau into df dy plus into dy plus dy by chain rule. So what is dy plus dy? Y plus is y by y tau. So d f dy plus into dy plus dy is 1 by y tau. What is du dy at the outer? So u tau into df d eta into d eta dy, d eta dy is 1 by delta. So you may cancel these from both sides and what you can do then, you can write, you multiply both numerator and denominator by y again, because let us recover the y plus and eta, that will be better. So let us write it in terms of that. So what you do is you multiply this by y, you multiply this also by y, so that you get back the variables y plus and eta. So what you get as df dy plus into y plus is equal to df d eta into eta, right. Look into this form, this is a function of y plus only and this is a function of eta only. Eta and y plus are two different variables, y plus is the inner variable and eta is the outer variable. One does not directly know the other. Why one directly does not know the other? The reason is straightforward. The reason is this is dominated by viscous effects, this does not understand so much the viscous effects. So this is dominated by the turbulence effects. So that means each is equal to a constant, say k. So what you can write here, therefore that df or maybe 1 by k to have the analogy with the previous form that we got. you see remarkably the form is the same, and if you integrate it you will get f is equal to 1 by k ln y plus a, this form, where f is like u plus. Similarly the outer law form also you can get. So just by dimensional arguments it is possible to get the form, and it is the more general way of doing it than the Prandtl's mixing length, because this does not assume any form of the mixing length. This just assumes the dimensional dependencies of the velocities in the inner and the outer regions. Very briefly let us see what happens for the rough walls. For the rough walls, so rough walls means let us say highly rough walls and high Reynolds number flow as an example. This is, so we are not talking about a general case of rough wall that is very complicated, but an extreme case of rough wall where it is very rough and a high Reynolds number flow is taking place over that. So when you have that, see the roughness scales, the wall is say something like this, and if you consider the average roughness, let us say that maybe S is the average roughness. This is much greater than the thickness of the viscous sublayer. So viscous sublayer is very thin, and when the roughness is much larger than the viscous sublayer, then it almost nullifies the effect of the viscous sublayer. So what dominates the behavior close to the wall for a very rough wall is not the effect of the viscous sublayer, but the effect of the wall roughness. This effect becomes more and more at higher and higher Reynolds number, because at higher and higher Reynolds number the viscous sublayer becomes thinner and thinner. If you go to very high Reynolds number, the viscous sublayer almost is vanishingly very small. So almost the entire roughness elements are exposed to the flow, and therefore the roughness dictates the flow then. So then for rough walls the inner law is changed to what? U plus is now a function of y by s, not a function of y by y tau. That is the only change. Okay. The reason is clear, that because of this extreme roughness, it is not that laminar or the viscous length scale that is coming into the picture, but the wall roughness length scale is dominating. Very high Reynolds number makes the viscous sublayer very thin. Maybe this is the thickness of the viscous sublayer, let us say delta V. So now then if you use the same form, then you will get here that u plus is equal to 1 by k ln now y by s plus say another constant b. For very high Reynolds number flow, this V may be close to 8.5 or something like that, roughly like that. That exact value is not important, but the form is important. See the dependence of the wall roughness for extremely rough wall and a very high Reynolds number flow, the combination that has become important. So we can have a broad picture of what happens very close to the wall, and why that is important? That is important because of the following reason, that many of the flows in engineering are wall bounded flows, maybe flow over a plate or a surface, or maybe flow in a channel or a pipe. So effect of the wall in dictating the turbulence is what is important, and somehow we could develop a qualitative picture or a very simple quantitative picture from the broad understanding, and you see that Prandtl's mixing length helped us a lot in understanding the actual functional dependencies on the various parameters. Now to end up with the discussion on turbulence, we should also touch upon something which makes turbulence unique. First of all, like what are the important characteristics of turbulence that we have understood? Wide range of length scales and time scales, and it is very difficult to capture all those in a modeling strategy. So one has to go for certain statistical description. That is the first thing that we have learned. The second important thing is, even when it is statistically tractable, there are certain non-intuitive pictures that it gives. See, we have till now developed a sort of a feeling, may not be by explicit understanding, but by intuition, that viscosity dampens out disturbances. So viscosity sort of stabilizes the flow, but this is not always true. I will just briefly talk about an example where viscosity in a turbulent flow destabilizes the flow. That means it instigates the instabilities. Qualitatively it is like this. say if you have a velocity profile, say a parabolic velocity profile, somehow you have a parabolic velocity profile in a channel flow, and this velocity profile say is there in a medium where the viscosity is 0, or say it is an inviscid flow, then if there is any perturbation, the perturbation will dampen out. There is a fundamental theorem which says that why it will dampen out, because this velocity profile does not have a maxima in the vorticity, that is maxima in du dy anywhere within the domain other than at the wall. See, if you see this u is like u by u average is 3 by 2 into 1 minus y square by h square. So if you find out maxima of du dy, which is the vorticity here, maxima of that means d2u dy2 is 0, and that is not achieved anywhere. So that means this does not have a maxima in the vorticity, and therefore any if it is there in a medium, flow medium where viscous effects are not important, any perturbations will die down. But if it is there in a viscous flow, then what happens? Now there is an interesting interaction. There is an interaction between the fluctuating velocity components u prime v prime and the shear in the mean flow du dy, and when the shear in the mean flow interact with this one, that interaction is by the mechanism of viscosity, and it is just because it is fundamentally like transfer of momentum between these fluctuating components and the mean gradient because of shear, and because of this exchange there is a production of sort of disturbance energy. The production of disturbance energy, so there is some production of disturbance energy, and on the top of that there is a dissipation of disturbance energy, that is also by viscosity. So at the end the turbulent kinetic energy or the fluctuation kinetic energy will be more if this becomes greater than the dissipation. Dissipation is also by viscosity. So without viscosity there is no such production and there is no such dissipation. With viscosity there is a production and there is a dissipation, and if the production is greater than dissipation, then the fluctuation component kinetic energy will grow. That means viscosity actually destabilizes the situation, it becomes a perturbed situation. So that is what we have understood, that it may be a very non-intuitive situation where viscous effects actually destabilize or may destabilize the flow rather than stabilizing the flow, and turbulence is one of the mechanism that triggers it. Okay, let us stop our discussion today, and from the next day we will start with a new chapter, the boundary layer theory. Thank you.